But this is the trend we always see, right? I mean, you think about the way that we moved to the cloud, it was the same thing. There was just this pressure, we got to get into the cloud. We'll figure out the security part later. That's how business works. And that's how, these exciting moments when things are being adopted really quickly, that's always how it is. Security is an afterthought, until it's not.
Feross is the founder and CEO of Socket, a software supply chain defense company. Customers include Anthropic, Figma, Vercel, and a Big Four US bank. Welcome, Feross.
Glad to be here, Ellie. Thanks for having me.
So we're filming this on April 8th, 2026. Yesterday, Anthropic announced Mythos Preview. Last month, Socket flagged the Axios backdoor 6 minutes after publication. And that was one of 5 major supply chain attacks that month. You were also personally targeted by North Korean hackers. What is this moment like for you today?
That's a great question. It's kind of surreal, actually, because, we've been talking about the problem in software supply chain security, since 2020, since we started the company. And at the beginning, it felt like we were almost like working on a niche problem, and it wasn't going to be a big deal. But I think we kind of saw the future a little bit and realized that this, that the way we build software today has changed and kind of opened up this opportunity for attackers to get into companies and organizations through all the open source code that we build all of our software with. And so you never want to get happy or celebrate as a security vendor when there's attacks happening, of course. But there's also a way that I look at this as, I think we're going to come out stronger as a software industry because this issue is now, in the forefront, and it's become such a high profile concern amongst pretty much everybody if they're paying any attention at all, right? So I think we're going to end up better for it all.
I did write down a question, is there any part of you that's like, I told you so?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we a lot of our team at Socket are open source maintainers ourselves. We have about 40 engineers on the team, and over half have been open source authors at some point in their careers. Collectively, the team is responsible for about 15 to 20% of all NPM download traffic. So we're a big part of the supply chain ourselves, and I think we've seen firsthand how hard it is to be an open source maintainer. What goes into that job? It's often unpaid. It's often volunteer based, and then to think the whole economy of the world is built on top of this foundation. I think we kind of all knew that this problem was there, right? That we're building software on this shifting foundation of all this random
house
code.
Of cards, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And so to see kind of the attackers finally realizing that this is a great opportunity, it's not a huge surprise. Yeah.
Let's talk about Axios. Walk me through those 6 minutes and what happened after. Socket flags the Axios backdoor, and then what?
Yeah. So what happened was the maintainer of Axios, which by the way is a really popular open source library that helps you make HTTP requests. So it's kind of like a foundational component that you see in a lot of applications. That maintainer got sent a phishing email, which was coming from somebody pretending to be the founder of a startup, and they gave him kind of a Slack invitation, join this channel and kind of work with the company on helping to maintain Axios or collaborating in various ways. They built up a relationship with him over the course of about 2 weeks, ultimately getting on a Microsoft Teams call with him. And they did this really sophisticated attack where they put together, it was a fake Microsoft Teams website, but it used the official Microsoft Teams SDK. So all the video components and everything kind of looked like the real thing, and it was embedded in the page. But then at some point in the call just kind of drops, and then a little error message shows up that says, you need to install this application on your system to kind of update the software. And so, anybody who's on a call who's kind of worried and paranoid, I got to get back in the call, they're waiting for me. He just kind of double clicked on it and installed it. And so it's the kind of thing that could happen to anybody. And, they really built up this kind of trust with him. So he wasn't kind of suspecting this type of an attack. And so that was really the moment where they were able to install what's called a remote access Trojan onto his laptop and kind of then, from that point on, kind of control everything on his computer, steal the tokens for his NPM packages, and then put these backdoors into the packages.
And then you guys find it really quickly. How were you able to detect what had happened?
Yeah. So, the key thing the kind of key insight of Socket was that, traditional vulnerability scanning tools are very reactive. They sort of wait around for like a security researcher to find a vulnerability inside of a piece of code and then report it. What we realized when we were starting the company was you really have to be much more proactive. So in the case of Axios, the moment that this bad code got added into Axios, everyone who is using that software should be able to know right away that like something about this has changed in a fundamental way. The security model of the package has changed. There's now data being stolen from the system that wasn't, that code wasn't there before. And so we really needed to kind of come up with a new model, which is the model is you look at the code. It sounds simple, but if humans aren't going to read this code before they download it from a random website that they've found online and start using it, then we need AIs to do it. And so the insight is we go out and we proactively, it's almost like a web crawler, like Google, but for open source code. And we go and find everything and analyze it all. So it's very expensive. There's a lot of compute, a lot of token spend, but it leads to like a much better, much safer model.
Switching topics a little bit, I want to talk about being personally targeted by North Korean hackers. What is that like to learn that a nation state is coming after you specifically?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this isn't the first time it's happened. So there was another attack where they were doing a bunch of what are called typo squat attacks, where they try to sort of pretend that they are other packages and they hope that an AI or a human's going to make a typo or make a mistake and install something that's a couple letters off from the correct package. So it's hard to know whether it's like they're coming after me specifically because of working at Socket, or if it's more like just they're going after the top maintainers on NPM and just going down the list by download count. And so I'm included in that list. It's probably the latter. I mean, if you look at the other folks that were hit, not hit, I should be clear, like being targeted means that they attempted to try to trick us, but nobody, myself or anyone at Socket, was actually fooled by it or fell for the bait. So I just want to be really clear about that. But yeah, I mean, it was funny after it happened, and the Axios maintainer shared some screenshots of like what the initial emails he got looked like. Myself and a bunch of others at the company, we just started searching our email, and we're like, oh, we have the same email.
Does the rise of AI agents make your job easier or harder?
AI absolutely helps Socket because what the insight that we had was that you need to, you really want to look at all the code that you're using in your application, and obviously like. Humans can't do that. It's not cost effective. It doesn't scale. But you can think of AI as like this infinitely scalable set of like AI minions that you can apply to whatever boring, repetitive task that you don't want to do as a human. And so it absolutely like has helped Socket. I mean, we're now kind of literally reading every line of code of every open source package and like, across 19 ecosystems. Like that would not have been possible without AI. If we were using, old school ML methods or just human labor, like that's not going to scale. But what really works really well is the hybrid AI human combo, because the AI can do the grunt work and it can surface the most interesting insights to the experts on our team, which today are way better than the AI is at confirming these things. And when you combine the two, you can basically drive false positives to zero. And we can kind of afford to do this because open source, while there are tens of millions of packages, it is ultimately a finite problem. Like there is a fixed number of these things, and so we can afford to throw a lot of compute, a lot of token spend at it, and kind of do this great work for our customers and for the community.
The thing that's interesting to me is, especially with Mythos announcement yesterday, it kind of feels like cybersecurity is more and more national security too. How do you think about that?
Totally. I mean, I think that open source is its infrastructure. It's like our roads and our bridges, right? If Nadia, I don't know how to say her last name, Asparova. Nadia Egbal was when I first met her was her name. So yeah, she wrote this amazing research paper and then later book on the idea of open source as our, as roads and bridges and as key infrastructure for, the whole country, right? And that is absolutely what it is and how to think about it. I don't know how to solve the problem of like how to secure every single open source project at the project level. It's a really challenging problem in terms of like, do you just give money to people? Should this be like a government thing where, we just kind of like treat it as, like funding libraries and funding, roads and bridges? Because in the past, like getting companies to just sort of voluntarily pay money to, for code that is licensed as free that they don't need to pay for. It's kind of a clash. Like donations and corporate, like CFOs, like those don't really go together. And so it's very hard for companies to actually get money into the hands of the people that work on this stuff. And so you kind of end up with this tragedy of the commons where these critical components are maintained by like one random person who's been doing it for 15 years, is totally burned out, is totally like susceptible to being, tricked into just giving it to somebody random who shows up and offers even the slightest amount of help. And so it's crazy to think that like we're building all companies in the world on top of this foundation, and it's not properly funded and properly resourced. Yeah,
I think I read earlier in your career, you tried to do something about that, right?
Yeah. I can
tried valiantly.
It was actually a funny story. So I tried a whole bunch of things, but the one that kind of got a lot of attention was I had an idea to bring advertising to open source. So the idea was, as you were installing a package, you'd type npm install such and such, and then you'd see a banner ad in your terminal that would tell you, this package is brought to you by, and then some sponsor. And it had a very strong, visceral reaction in the developer community. A lot of people were like, why are you bringing ads to the terminal? It's like my one safe space.
It's a sacred space.
No other place in like any part of our life where there's no advertising. Please don't bring advertising. So I totally get it. The point wasn't that I love advertising or that I'm like excited about ads, but just that, I really wanted to do something that was in your face and that would kind of raise the problem, raise awareness of the issue to more people. And so it absolutely did raise awareness. It was like there was a huge controversy on Hacker News about it. And ultimately, the two initial sponsors that I had roped into doing this to be part of this initial experiment were getting upset users contacting them saying like, I'm going to cancel my subscription with you guys if you don't like back out of this experiment you're doing with Feross, because I hate advertising that much. And so I got calls, literally like panic calls from the CEO of one of the companies. And he's like, you need to take our ad down right now. We're literally churning customers because of this ad, like, please cancel it. And so it was the most, I still think it was a success in terms of like creating a conversation piece. And I really do think those sponsors, and myself had our heart in the right place. People are really entitled, right? People see it as like this all-you-can-eat buffet of like,
yes.
I'm just used to it all being there for free. Like, what do you mean I have to like pay for this, or that there's people behind it?
5 years from now, does open source look fundamentally different than it does today?
Yeah, I think it will. The scale of pull requests and issues that maintainers were already dealing with, it was a lot. And now, you have agents going around and doing stuff constantly, opening PRs. So there's a lot of overload from well-meaning people, I think, that are trying to help and deploy their AIs. But I think it's kind of taking an already overburdened, open source maintainer group and kind of throwing even more at them. And then now you add in kind of all the vulnerabilities that the new models like Mythos are going to find, and you're going to get even more backlog. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think maintainers are kind of already at a breaking point. So I don't know how that affects things. I do think that we will see, obviously, I think adoption of tools like Socket and other companies to kind of help get a handle on all the threats coming from, both the vulnerabilities and the supply chain attacks that are happening in open source. I think that you may see a little bit of a reduction in the usage of open source dependencies at the margins, maybe just a small. I don't think it's going to be a big amount, but I think when you're talking about a 50 line package, it might make sense to just have the AI write that 50 lines directly into your application and just kind of remove that supply chain risk. Obviously, there's trade-offs. Like that comes with its own downsides, because now you don't get improvements over time, you don't get performance fixes, you don't get bug fixes, and you're responsible for maintaining that code. And so you lose a little bit of reusability. But I think given the threat we're seeing in the supply chain, I think people are going to start to consider doing that. I don't think it's going to spread very far. I don't think you're going to see people rewriting React or Node.js or their own operating system like Mac OS for themselves, right? Like I think there's still a lot of value to building on the same shared foundation as others in the community. And this is also kind of stuff that the models have been trained on. But I do think we'll see some shift there. We're living in very interesting times.
Yes. Yeah. And you're really in the heart of it when it comes to open source. Awesome. Feross, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ali. This was really fun.